This week on The Breakout, we talk about the budget,
We have some exclusive reporting from officials heading out the door.
and DOGE rears its head again. Welcome to The Breakout. I'm Aaron Mehta.
And I'm Lee Farron.
So, Lee, there's a lot going on in Washington with the Trump administration coming in this week. Obviously, the Pete Hegseth situation is still, as we talk about this now, waiting on a vote. We expect that to be settled soon.
Executive orders almost certainly happening, even though we don't know about it yet. But
Exactly.
It's almost certainly on.
We know there's going to be a lot, but we want to look forward a little bit.
Yes.
And that's to your favorite subject, which you are absolutely comfortable talking about, which is?
The budget. The
Yes.
defense budget. I know all the NDAAs. I know all the appropriations. I know the continuing resolutions. I know the reconciliations. I know all those words mean something.
They do. The good thing is, Lee might not know exactly what all those words mean, but I actually got a chance to talk to somebody who really does. So
Yes.
Last week I interviewed Representative Mario Diaz-Balart from Florida. He's a long-term congressman who actually, after we talked, was named the #2 House Appropriator. But he's also sits on the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee and leads the State Appropriations Subcommittee.
So somebody who not only actually knows what they're talking about, but can do something about it too.
Right. Well, we hope.
Yeah, we'll see.
And that's part of the conversation was him acknowledging that, look, there's a lot of moving parts. There's reconciliation, which is a process that President Trump seems to be interested in pursuing to add some money to the budget. There's the actual budget discussions. And he was pretty open that this is going to be a little bit of a lift to get things where they need to be. Here's a clip.
Obviously, nothing is as more devastating as to do a shutdown. But other than a shutdown, CRs are really damaging in a lot of different areas, but it's more dramatic and more acute in defense. You're literally just wasting money at a time when we're not putting enough money to start with in defense. But in the meantime, we shouldn't wait till March. We better not go into the sequestration because that would really put us in jeopardy.
So he mentioned March there. Like beyond March Madness, why does March matter?
Well, the madness is part of the fun. The CR was passed in December, the continuing resolution. That kept the government from shutting down. The problem is it was a 3-month CR, so it only gets you to the middle of March. At that point, if there's no budget, either a new CR or an actual budget, the government shuts down again. And if the government shuts down this time, it's really bad because there's also sequestration. There's a whole number of things that can happen. It gets very confusing. The point is, if you're in the Pentagon, you are sweating bullets until you get full appropriations passed.
Right, because even with a CR, they can't do new starts. There's so many restrictions under CRs. The Pentagon's used to it because they've had to operate under so many. But they say they need a full budget to really do what they've been called on to do.
Yeah, and I think what you heard here is some cautious optimism. Representative is looking at this and saying, we want to get this done, but he's also acknowledging that there's politics in play, both inside his caucus and then outside, because to get a full appropriations, you do need a majority of Congress to make that happen.
So you just need a few lawmakers to play nice for once, right? No problem.
Easy.
No problem. With Trump coming into office, on their way out, some senior military officials did some exit interviews with our own staff. We got some good exclusive information, including from Andrew Hunter.
Yeah, Andrew Hunter is the Air Force Acquisition Chief. He talked with Michael Marr, our Air Force reporter, and had to sit down with him. One of the things that really struck us out of that was him sounding the siren that, look, China might very well lap the U.S. on a 6th-generation fighter.
Yeah, that we saw some pictures come out over the holidays of 2 new Chinese aircraft flying, almost no information about what they are and what they can do, but certainly going to light a fire under some people in the Pentagon who are waiting on the next generation air dominance fighter, NGAD, to take its first flight.
Yeah, and the thing that Hunter said specifically was beat us to the punch. And I get the sense that's a quote that you're going to hear a lot in hearings going forward when the question of supporting NGAD, which has been a little on the rocks over the last 8 months or so, when that comes up, I think you're going to hear a lot of people using that quote because it does drive home the fact that China likely wants to, even if just for political claims, be able to say, hey, we got the first 6th-generation fighter. In terms of military application, we don't know what the Chinese actually have. It looked cool, but we don't really know what it is. We also don't really know what NGAD is because it's all classified.
That's a good point.
So there's just going to be something I think you're going to hear that quote a lot. It wasn't the only exit interview that we had, though.
Yeah, and that is clearly a race, but another race that Frank Calvelli, who's the Space Military Acquisitions Chief, spoke to our Teresa Hitchens about, was the race to get OCX, which is the next generation GPS system, online finally. After how many years has it been?
Something like 15 years.
So it's not operational yet. He named that his #1 regret of his time in the acquisitions chair seat. He hopes to get it done by the end of the year, but we'll see.
Yeah, and one thing really stood out from Calvelli was he kind of specifically called out industry in a way you don't usually hear.
Oh yeah, in like very strong terms. He was talking about when industry negotiates contract, he said pretty flatly, they lie. And this was kind of a warning he offered to the Pentagon, to the Department of the Air Force, about going forward, you have to kind of hold the industry's feet to the fire when it comes to the promises they make early in the contract negotiations.
Yeah, and this is pretty blunt language that you don't usually hear from an acquisition official, so it really kind of stood out to us.
And I guess that's what you can say when you're on your way out the door.
It's helpful when you've got senioritis, I guess. Well, look, there's some other blunt language from industry. We're going to talk about that after the break.
At Leonardo DRS, our agility helps bring the ability to dominate in any scenario, on any platform, helping our warfighters accomplish the mission and get home safely. Leonardo DRS, our agility, your advantage.
All right, so unusual commentary from an official out the door to unusual commentary from an industry official who's still managing things right now.
Hoping to court some people coming in the door. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there was this letter that went out from L3Harris CEO Chris Kubasik, who's a longtime industry figure, really very unusual. So it was addressed to DOGE, which is the Department of Government Efficiency, the Elon Musk, the Ramaswamy, we're going to find things to cut effort. We talked about this last week. And it's basically saying, hey, DOGE, this is what you should do.
Yeah, he laid out a few recommendations, including loosening some regulations on some things and how contracts may be better arranged. But the unusual thing is just that the letter exists at all. You hear some startups and new entrants into the defense space kind of making noise as they come in because they're hoping to attract attention and to kind of shape the bureaucracy to better benefit them. What you hear less often is the established defense primes making a lot of noise.
Yeah, it's not like L3Harris has never won a Pentagon contract before and is trying to get a small OTA here. It also struck me, aside from, again, just the way this was structured, and L3Harris pushed this out to us, should be clear. This wasn't like a quiet document. They made this public. There were also some direct criticisms of the Biden administration and things that went on under the Biden Pentagon, which again is a kind of politicalization that you just don't see that often in a political transition like this.
Yeah, and to read more about it, go to breakingdefense.com. Valerie and Senna covered the story for us. Speaking of which, as this is being filmed early, we do expect Trump to unleash quite a few executive orders in his first few days in office. To get the latest, go to breakingdefense.com. We'll cover all the big news online as usual.
And make sure that you like and subscribe so you get next week's video direct where you need it. Thanks for watching.